Hello, and welcome to Lifespan Development. In Chapter 1, we're talking about the study of human development, right? We're talking about how we research, we get information on human development, how we view human development, how over time we see how people change, how people stay the same or whatnot, and what factors go into that. So the study of human development asks some really simple questions, right? How does your life begin? How did you grow from single cell to a complex adult? How will people around you influence you? How has various roles in your life shaped your development? How have you dealt with death, right? Or losing someone close to you, right? So when we start studying human development, those are questions we're going to always ask and see overall how people respond to those questions. It's multidisciplinary study, right, to see how people change or stay the same over time, right? So human development is a lot of research to it. We're going to talk about that here later on. Life is shaped by like a bunch of complex set of factors, nature and culture, continuity or discontinuity, things that stay the same or things that change, universal and context specific development, certain concepts or certain universal things that we all have embedded into ourselves or whatnot, and things that are different, depending on different contexts or different development or different environments that people are in. Nature versus nurture has always been an issue, right? Personal characteristics inherited, which are nature, and are brought up by their environment, which is nurture, right? So people consider certain careers have much in common. How do nature and nurture influence a person's choice to be a professional baseball player or any other career, right? Does nature play a bigger role or nurture play a bigger role? Your environment or what you inherited play a bigger role in your career choice? Continuity versus discontinuity issues, right? Do characteristics remain the same or progress smoothly? That's continuity. Or just my abrupt shifts. That's discontinuity, right? We talk about universal and context specific issues. Is there just one developmental path or are there several different developmental paths that we have? There are four interactive forces that affect our development. There are biological forces, our makeup, our genetic makeup, psychological forces, things that impact the way we think, the way we visualize things, our mental health, social cultural forces, things around us, our environment, culture, and life cycle forces, right? The interaction between these forces create what we call a biopsychosocial framework. And if we look at our biopsychosocial framework, you see biological forces, social cultural forces, and psychological forces, which all shape us from as little kids up into adulthood. Neuroscience plays a huge role. The study of the brain, right? A term that's not mentioned here, but neuroplasticity plays a huge role. It shapes how we view things based on our experiences. Our brain grows and stretches based on what we experience, right? So neuroscientific approaches apply to human development issues such as memory, reasoning, and emotion, right? Methods include molecular analysis or brain imaging techniques. So we're talking about developmental theories still. Why do people have their own specific characteristics, right? Some theories, right, which is a organized set of ideas have been developed about human development, right? There's five general theories of human development: the psychodynamic approaches, learning theory, cognitive developmental theory, ecological or systems theory, or lifespan perspectives or related theories. So psychodynamic theories talks about development is determined by how well people resolve conflicts faced at different ages, right? The key theorists when we talk about psychodynamic theory in terms of human development is going to be Erik Erikson and Sigmund Freud. Erikson's theory of development, which walks us through some phases of whatnot that he says we go through, and if we can have the positive end or negative end of that phase of whatnot, it's going to play a huge role in how we respond to things. For instance, and this first stage is basic trust versus mistrust. That's birth to 1 year, right? The development of sense of the world is a good place or not, right? Autonomy versus shame. This is 1 to 3 years, right? To realize that one is an independent person who can make decisions or doubt. Stage three, initiative versus guilt. This is from age 3 to 6 years old to develop the ability to try new things and handle failure. The next would be industry versus inferiority. That's 6 years to adolescence, learning basic skills to work with others. Identity versus identity confusion. As adolescents, developing lasting integrated sense of self. You kind of know in this phase right here, this is the adolescent stage where they're trying to feel accepted, trying to be accepted in their environment, feel comfortable in their environment. The next stage is intimacy versus isolation. This is young adulthood, right? Can you commit to another in a loving relationship, right? Generativity versus stagnation is the next phase. This is middle adulthood, right? Are you contributing to young adults? Are you contributing to child care? Are you productive in your life? And finally, the last stage, he says, is integrity versus despair. This is late life, right? One's view of how their life has been satisfied or not. So, how do these theories influence a certain behavior, right? There are two key theories when we talk about learning theory. We have behaviorism, right? The Skinner, right? The consequences of behavior determine whether or not the behavior is repeated. Or the social learning theory we've been doing, right? Learning, when he says learning occurs through imitation or observing others. Cognitive development theory, right? He said how people think and how things are changed over time. There's three distinct theories. Piaget's theory is children create theories about the world and test them out through their own experiences. Information processing theory is human cognitions consist of mental hardware and mental software. Do people hardware and software improve with age? Vygotsky's theory. Every aspect of child development must be considered against the backdrop of culture, right? Do Americans value education more than some other cultures do, right? So again, he's talking about how culture influences human development. Piaget has a model, the four stages of cognitive development, where the first is sensory motor. That's from birth to 2 years. Where infants' knowledge of the world is based on senses and motor skills. By the end of the period, they use mental representation. Next stage is pre-operational thought. This is 2 to 6 years old, where a child learns how to use symbols such as words, and numbers to represent aspects of the world, but relates to the world only through his or her perspective. The next stage is concrete operational thought. This is 7 years to adolescence, where children understand and applies logical operations to experience that they are focused in the here and now. And finally, we have the formal operational thought. This is from adolescence and beyond, where adolescents or adults think abstractly, right? They think about hypothetical situations, right? They speculate, right? The things that may be possible. So the ecological and systems perspective, right? The development is inseparable from the environment, which is a person's development, right? Questions like how would an ecological therapist explain American teenagers' behavior, right? They gave us two examples, right? Talking about Bronfenbrenner's theory, where people are embedded to four levels of the environment, or the competence in environmental press theory, right? Which is a match between competence and environment for the best development. Here's a little example of that model where we talked about the top layer there. You have a macro system, you have an exosystem, a mesosystem, and then you have that microsystems, and with the microsystems in the middle there, that's where you got the parent and the child involved. That and those other systems are external, right, and play a role, but they're external on the outskirts of that microsystem. So can you understand a person without knowledge of his or her life experiences? Again, it's going to be from a theoretical perspective. Some of us, like myself, I am very psychodynamic in my approach. I have an Adlerian approach to therapy where I like to go back to the past and think about someone's development, right? So again, getting to know someone or from a lifespan's perspective, development cannot be understood through the scope of one framework. You have to use multiple frameworks, right? One must appreciate an adult's childhood and adolescence in order to understand them, right? So looking through at the whole big picture. There are four central features of lifespan development, right? Multi-directional, plasticity, historical context, and multiple causation, right? So selective optimization with compensation model tells about selection, compensation, and optimization system of behavioral actions in regards to human behavior. So life course perspective. How do various generations experience the biopsychosocial forces of development in their lives, right? Can we consider an interplay between individual and society, right? Do people today tend to marry at the same age as people of 75 years ago? And then what are the factors that change it? What are some things that are causing that change in people getting married? So we talked about those theoretical perspectives of human development. We talked about psychodynamic, learning, cognitive development, and cognitive developmental, right? So again, talking about all those theories here, this chart is a really good chart. It's table 1-3 that you guys should review in your books or whatnot, where it breaks down each one of those theoretical perspectives. Here we have the ecological systems, the lifespan and selective optimization compensation, and the life course theoretical perspective. There are 4 approaches to doing research. So research is really important for us to understand human behavior because we want to get a sample size, right? To get to overall research that can actually generalize our whole population, right? So we can get some real information, right? So we use systematic observation, sampling behavior with tasks, self-reports, and physiological measures. There's 2 types of systematic observations: naturalistic, which is observing the person in real life, and structured observation, creating a setting to bring out the behaviors. Self-report is people's answers to questions about the topic of interest, right? They can be written or oral answers. Physiological measure, brain imaging, heart rate monitoring, specializing in measuring or specific aspects of a certain behavior. Here's another model that tells about the measuring behaviors and interests of human development research, right? It's talking about systematic observation, naturalistic observation, structured observation, those same things we just talked about in the previous slides. Human development researchers rely on 2 primary designs: correlational studies, relationships between variables that exist naturally in the world; experimental studies, systematic ways of manipulating the independent variables or to cause particular behavior. The general designs for research: the first variable causes the second variable, right? For instance, being smart, having more friends, that first variable influences the second variable. The second variable causes the first variable, having more friends or being smart, right? Or neither variable is caused by other. Both are caused by a third variable, which not was measured in the study, right? So again, this is the general designs of a research study. Qualitative research allows the researcher to gain an in-depth understanding of human behavior and what governs it. It's the best way to use large samples or small people with a qualitative design. There are 3 designs that allow researchers to development: longitudinal studies, cross-sectional studies, or sequential studies. Longitudinal studies use the same individuals as they're tested throughout their lives, right? Most directive way to identify change. Finally, methods must not violate participants' rights. So everyone has rights, and in research, we want to make sure no one's rights are violated so that we get sample sizes that are accurate, true, right, and people who are willing to participate. A review panel must approve a proposed study, and each participant or parent guardian must be informed of what the study entails and gives his or her consent to make sure that everyone can participate and people have consent to actually involve themselves in the research. So summarizing it up, lifespan development is heavily researched, and it's research using different models, using different types of research, with different types of observation, different types of way of gaining information and seeing what variables influence each other, right? But it's, again, you have different models of theories of lifespan development, where we can talk about psychodynamic, or you can talk about cognitive behavioral models or whatnot. Those different perspectives bring out different viewpoints that we're going to concentrate on in studying lifespan development. And there's models that show how we develop over time throughout a lifespan, right? All these things gives us more information about how we develop over a lifespan and how we get information about ourselves.